So this video is going to be new for the channel, at least a new animal anyway. So as many of you know, I keep a whole bunch of different things. So upstairs I have a community fish tank. I have an axolotl in my office. In a reptile room down here, we have all the boas that we're breeding, as well as my pet Burmese python Dagon, and about 60 tarantulas or so. I also have a silly black cat named Felix, and probably two of the hardest creatures that I have grown up thus far. And I'm referring to my children, my son and my daughter. Um, but I also keep one other very large reptile. Without further ado, Chubs, spelled with two B's and plural. He is my Argentine black and white Tegu, and we're going to spend a couple videos talking about him, broken up over several different weeks. I'm Jay. This is Jay's Cryptic Creatures. Come on, let's learn something together. Okay, I'm going to say this now and probably several times throughout the course of this video, but it's important. Do your research. Whether you're getting a snake or a cat or a dog or tarantulas, do your research. I can't state this enough. You're taking the responsibility of growing up and raising a life. And you know, these things aren't easy. Each species, each creature has its own special needs. Please do your research, and not just this video, not just 3 other videos. Go onto the web, check that out. If you can talk with somebody who keeps that particular animal, do that. Meet with a breeder. If you have the ability, go hang out with them and see uh, how they do things, how that interaction is. If you're going to get a big python, go meet with that breeder or keeper. You know, Dagon, my Burmese python, was quite small when I first got him. Now he's well over 8 feet, and he's going to keep getting bigger. So keeping in mind and understanding the life cycle of these animals is super duper important, and they're typically long lived. So this is commitment. Do your research. Like I said earlier, we're going to make several different videos about Chubs the Tegu. Um, kind of what I have in my head is video 1 that we're going to do now, with a focus more on the caging, the environmental requirements, and then just the setup and things of that nature. I'm going to do another video on diet later on, and then just maybe a miscellaneous one as things. So like I said, this video is going to focus on environmental conditions, caging requirements, and enrichment. I'll be sharing with you the information that I have gathered and how I currently keep Chubs. I want to be clear, this is how I keep him. He seems to be doing quite well. But the way I'm doing this isn't the only way. There's a lot of other conditions that go into keeping reptiles. You know, where you live at in the world, where even the animals located in your house, how the cycles occur in nature organically. All these factors come into play. The most important thing you can do is observe and be diligent, taking readings and noticing how your animal's interacting within that environment. Okay, we'll start off with basking temperatures, hotspot. You know, I'll jump back and forth in between saying basking temperature and hotspot. This is one of those things that, depending on where you look at on the web or who you talk to, you'll get a pretty big range. What I've seen is that the hotspots being somewhere between 115 Fahrenheit and 135 degrees Fahrenheit. You tell the temperature by using a thermal spot gun, and and getting the feedback from that. The key here is to again observe your Tegu. So if you have a temperature kind of on the lower side and you see your Tegu spending the majority of the day under the lamps, that's a good indication that it may be too low of a temperature. Um, I would recommend going low and then raising up, because if you have a hotspot that's too hot, you have the potential for burns and or not getting the amount of UVB, at least in my setup, which you'll see is adjacent um, to the hotspot. So again, observe your Tegu. What you want to see is coming out to bask, especially early in the morning, right when they're waking up, absorbing that heat, absorbing that UVB, UVA, and then going down, wandering around, coming back, heating back up, going back down, wandering around, kind of using that natural thermal gradient. Speaking of thermal gradient, on the cool side, you want something north of 70 degrees. I usually try to shoot for 75. Again, so they have the ability to regulate their body temperature between, that 120 to 75. I just mentioned the heat lamps are next to my UVB source. I have two of them inside of that enclosure. I use the Arcadia product line UVB bulbs and fixtures. One of the key things, and it's a little expensive, is to get a solar meter. Um, Tegus, from my research, like to be in the Ferguson zone of 3 to 4. Um, Without a shadow of a doubt, you can get a solar meter and really dial in the height of your lamps, making sure that they're in the proper zone. Additionally, um, good practice is to change out your lamps uh, or bulbs. I'm sorry, every 6 months. Again, you can remove any doubt if the bulb is starting to die or has died completely from or is no longer emitting UVB by having a solar meter. I would highly recommend getting one. I'll have a link where you can get this in the description. So you have the heat lamps, you have the UVB bulbs. I also have just an incandescent in there just for general lighting, and then all of my lights are tied to a Govee smart plug that I run via the app. I believe currently the lights turn on at about 6:30 a.m. Um, and then they go out about 7 p.m. I believe. Chubs usually wakes up and starts to mosey on out at about 6:45, 7 o'clock or so. Last topic before we head out there and check out the setup is humidity. So I shoot for somewhere between 75 and 90% humidity, and allow it to naturally kind of come up and down throughout the course of a day. What you'll see is kind of a humidity spike at night once the lights turn out, and then initially when the lights turn on, you'll see a spike again. Um, I have quite deep substrate. I believe it's like 16 inches or so. I'm not sure, offhand. It's been compressed down a lot over the past, year or so. But the really deep substrate allows the substrate to hold that moisture in and then release it naturally throughout the course of a day. And you want to see that fluctuation. And if you're struggling to keep that humidity where it should be, it's not a bad idea to invest in a misting system. I do not have one. The Tegu enclosure is pretty big to begin with. You'll see when we get out there. So what I end up doing is dumping water into the actual substrate and letting it permeate on down. No more talking inside of this room. Let's relocate. Go out there, check out the enclosure, and see if Chubbs is out. All right, so we're outside of the snake and arachnid room and into my general basement. Um, First thing you'll notice is this is Chubbs's enclosure. Um, I'm not a tall guy, but this is a 4 foot tall, 8 foot long, and 4 foot deep enclosure. So, like we talked about earlier about doing a research, make sure you have a spot to put one of these guys in the house. Doesn't take takes up a significant amount of room. And then on top of that, and we'll get into it later, the amount of substrate and decor that goes in there makes this cage incredibly heavy. This cage comes from Animal Plastics, um, slightly different than their standard 8 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot. I had them increase the litter dam, I believe, up to 20 inches, I think is what we settled on. So I could really pack in the substrate. And these are sliding glass doors, and each panel is significantly heavy. Again, this is a minimum size, right? For Tegus, bigger is always better. But this should be Chubbs's forever home. Um, Additionally, you'll probably need a setup like this before they reach 3 years old. Tegus grow incredibly quick. At least in my experience, I've only had one. But again, do your research. That's pretty much the what everybody says. And additionally, aside from growing quick, you're going to have this pet for a very long time. Well past 20 years or so. So we got to make sure we consider how big this enclosure is, where it's going to go in your house, how much it weighs, and the amount of time you're going to be with this pet Tegu. Again, this is no small commitment. Okay, diving into the substrate. Chubbs is taking a little nap. Maybe he'll pop out here in a minute. But the substrate itself is a 1-to-1 to half blend of topsoil, peat, and play sand. Not the sand that you would use for like masonry work. The play sand, specifically, the granules are shaped differently and round. Um, so, like I said, it's 1 part topsoil, 1 part peat, and half a part of sand, and a significant amount. Like I said, I think I got my litter dam at 20 inches, but the amount in total, you're covering an 8 foot by 4 foot wide space, probably 16 inches deep or so. The left side of the enclosure is actually the hot side with basking. So to start, we have actually a spare snake enclosure that was 36 by 18 by 18 that I flipped on its side and modified. It's out of PVC. So we have I kind of carved out the door to go in there. We have some general sticks and logs that I have found from around the area that I disinfected by baking them as the ramp going up. Then you see a large basking platform with slate. We have 2 light fixtures, lamp fixtures with 75-watt halogen bulbs inside of there, and then an Arcadia 36-inch UVB fixture with a 12% UVB bulb inside of that. And this side is where Chubs will migrate to absorb that heat, get up the temperature, and then a decent amount of room to wander around inside of the enclosure. We have a cork bark tube, nice big one. At the other end, there's a big entrance. Actually, Chubbs is in there now, hiding out. We have a 48-inch Arcadia UVB fixture with a 14% UVB bulb in there. Again, this is based on height and using a solar meter. Then we have another heat spot. So this one is using a 100-watt halogen Arcadia bulb. Again, to hit that temperature right underneath, as well as helping with the ambient temperature. And then I have an incandescent bulb down there at the end just for general lighting of the enclosure. A large kitty litter tub for water, both as a water bowl, and then he can actually get inside of there if he likes, and some other climbing opportunities with the cinder blocks and some cork and some other rocks scattered around. Moving the discussion over to enrichment. Tegus are considered a very intelligent reptile. Um, kind of the benchmark for intelligence, people say, are the monitors, that they are well known to be highly intelligent. The truth is, Tegus are right up there with monitors. There are some reports that show they are equal to or smarter than monitors. As a matter of fact, I can attest to this firsthand. I keep the Chubs here is my only Tegu, but he is really smart, really bright. Inside of the enclosure, we have some balls and some rocks and things of that nature for him to play with. Um, what I like to do is rearrange some of the fixtures inside of that enclosure from time to time, and or change things out. You can really see his gears get turning and re-examining what I did or what I'm doing inside of there. Um, Building on that intelligence, there are some Tegu keepers that have even gone so far as to potty train their Tegu uh, using a litter box or a puppy pad. I have not done this, but with that said, Chubbs is target trained. So on days that are feeding, what I do is I present this ball with a stick, ball at the end of a stick, and he has to interact with it generally by pressing his nose against it or opening his mouth, gently touching it, and then I present food. The main reason here is, tegus are very large lizard with very sharp teeth. I don't want to get bit by him, so what I like to do is let him know, hey, it's time to eat versus it's time to just interact or play. Um, Thus far, I've been pretty successful. The fact is, we started target training when he was a really young Tegu. I'll put a little clip over here when he was, probably only a few months old or so. So like I'm saying, very smart. Target training all the way. Again, really helps to differentiate between playtime and food time. So when it's time to play, I'm able to open up the door, get some head scratches, or he's able to come out and interact with me. While on the subject of enrichment and play and mental stimulation, I highly recommend some free roam time. Seeing Chubs come out and wander around and interact with the environment down here has been fantastic. After coming out of this last bromation, and I think at this point he's done with his puberty stage. He is way more chill, way more relaxed, and inquisitive. So oftentimes he pops on out of here, wanders around down in the basement area. Over the past several weeks, he's been migrating upstairs, always under supervision by me. Several weeks ago, he started going upstairs when my son was asleep and my wife and daughter were at gymnastics. So it was kind of calm and relaxed. Over the past couple times, he's wandered upstairs while the entire family was out and interacting. My daughter is younger and she can be a bit quick and sporadic. He's been really good. He hasn't been super skittish. You can see that he is a little bit more aware and not scared or anything like that, just more on point having them up there. But these small interactions, these small steps are really coming along. I also want to make it clear that I'm saying free roam time, not permanent free roaming. There is a school of thought or people that are out there that permanently free roam their Tegu or large monitors. Um, while you're able to kind of give them what they need in terms of heat, maybe UVB in a free roam environment. Tegus in particular need that higher humidity, 75 to 90% range. That's really hard to keep in a house, typically, at least in my experience. And nor do I want to keep anything 90% humidity in my house. So I think it's good for these lizards to have the ability to come out and free roam and interact and get that mental stimulation. But I recommend having a spot for them to go back to for the majority of the time, so that they can get that humidity, temperature, and that microclimate at their house, in their enclosure. Um, Additionally, a good idea is potentially, if you have the environment, outdoor enclosure for the summer months. Um, Truth be told, I do not have an outdoor enclosure. I have been considering it, and I have been doing some research. Chubbs is a digger by nature. He loves to dig holes and go underneath. So I'm a little bit hesitant, trying to map out, how I would set up the enclosure to give him a nice, good area to dig in outside, but then also what I would do to prevent him from digging down and out and underneath. So we're not there yet. If I do end up, crossing that bridge, I will make a video about that process and how things are working. But being outside and having that natural UVB is something fantastic for almost all reptiles, and it's something that should be explored if you have the means to do so. Well, all right, folks. Well, this is a typical way I start my day when Chubbs isn't brumating. Have my coffee. He's just waking up with some heat. We get to be able to get a quick chat in before I head off to work. This video was a bit of an endeavor. Tegus are quite a bit different than the things I normally take care of. My tarantulas and snakes. These guys are pretty involved. I'm going to end this video the same way I began. Do your research. Not just this video, not a couple of videos. Spend some time, some weeks, potentially months, getting in touch and with other people and really understanding how you're going to approach tegus and their care. With that said, tegus are an amazing pet. They get really big. They have big enclosures. They're certainly more effort than uh, tarantulas and snakes, but they can make amazing pets. You just have to take time and care to do so. Hi, bud. So, with all this being said, please like, subscribe, and we can continue learning about chubs, tegus, spiders, snakes, and other cryptic creatures together. Until next time.